Hey everyone, this is Todd McFarlane here. I just want to make an announcement. We're going to be doing on February 12th, on Monday, at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 5 p.m. on the East Coast. We're going to be doing a charity auction event, which basically means every single penny that we earn that day, 100% of it will be going to the charity that you in our polling will pick. The three charities. One is for the Animal Welfare, American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, the ASPCA, for all you animal lovers out there. The other one is for children, Children's International. There are people both here in this country and around the world, children that don't have enough food in their bellies, and it's a good cause to basically see if we can help feed them. And then one of the women's rights care, another one that helps women across the globe also stay healthy, give them medical and food so they can raise their families properly. We'll let you guys decide which one of those three you want to give 100% of the money to, and then we'll basically sell and do as much fun as we can do. Now, what's going to be in the auction? Oh, we're going to go to my warehouse. We're going to find lots and lots of stuff. You guys saw some of it in the past, like sweaters. Maybe we're throwing a jacket. I found a couple pieces of artwork I'm going to donate. I'll probably do a sketch or two that's in there. We've got tons of comic books. We've got tons of toys. We're going to do some sort of gathering of things put together. We're going to offer like a half an hour personal Zoom, me and you, whoever wins that one. We get to just chit chat, have a good time. Another one that we'll do a Zoom that any of you aspiring artists or know somebody's an artist, I will basically do a half an hour review of your portfolio of the art and give you some tips that I can. And then we're just going to come up with a bunch of other stuff that's super crazy. The goal is to raise, hopefully, somewhere between $40,000 to $100,000 maybe for a good cause, and give every single penny that's raised away to one of these great places. I think it's the reason why I'm here more than anything else on Whatnot. We can, besides a great community with you good people there, is that we can get a lot of money and help the world do a lot of good things, and in our own backyard, whether that's in a particular state and or in our country. So anybody interested, come out February 12th, 2 p.m. on the Pacific Standard Time, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Get ready for it. There's going to be a link in the bio to any of the charities. So if you want to basically help us in the voting of that, you can basically do your homework and research. So hope to see you there. I'll probably buy a couple items myself so we can make that donation too. All right, peace. Be good.
Hello everybody, welcome to another Comic Source Comic Boom collaboration. Time for Spawn Daily. We're up to issue number 34. Let's go ahead and dive into the latest issue of Spawn, which is issue number 34. Go ahead and share my screen. As you can see there, Violator on the cover. I talked last time about having the Violator in his kind of demon form, I guess we'll call it, on the cover of last issue, which kind of sort of spoiled a little bit of who the menace for the first half of the book was. I mean, maybe people would have guessed anyway, but pretty cool looking cover there. Check out the credits. We have Todd McFarlane on story, Greg Capullo, Todd McFarlane handling the art, Tom Orzechowski on letters, Steve Oliff, Quinn Suppley with Oleoptics on colors, and special thanks to Kevin Conrad, Chance Wolfe, and Julia Simmons. So as we dive into the book, we're told about Violator, basically. It's talking about how the feel of him is rough and bristly, born an eternity ago in the foulest corner of the 8th level of hell, created to serve its master, Malbolgia, and how it's got a shriveled heart, and it has a mission, and it fights for that mission with a single-mindedness because it wants to enter the master's inner circle. But all that happened when the Violator reached that inner circle was he was given the task of being a spawn warden is the way that it's put here. And with each succeeding spawn being promoted in the army as a lieutenant to lead, the violator felt worse and worse about itself. And in the picture here, it's kind of hard to tell what's happening, but this is the violator in that sewage, the tons of sewage that dropped on it when it was fighting Spawn last issue. And we see some kind of gnarled hands trying to pull it out of the water. So it's a little, it's not the best composition here. I mean, I don't mind the hands and we can see the horns of the violator, but I wish there weren't so many bubbles so we could kind of get a better idea, because it took me a while to realize what was happening here. And you got to kind of read along to figure it out. But anyway, the exposition goes on to say that the violator was kind of upset that these outsiders, these hellspawn, kept getting the plum assignments in the army of Malbolgia, and he started to question it. And though the question started out as a joke, it eventually bothered Violator more and more. But it didn't actually make a big deal out of it, because he didn't want to disgrace his family, didn't want to be cast out of Malbolgia's inner circle, but always had the desire to really be closer to have a higher role, as opposed to the hellspawn that it was the warden of, like always the bridesmaid, never a bride kind of thing, right? And so it would start going above and beyond all these desires. Hey, Malbolgia, let me prove to you how evil I am and whatnot. And some of that is what led the violator to make the mistakes, we'll call them, when dealing with the Al Simmons spawn, and caused what we saw in the early issues, where it was going around killing mafia people. Spawn was blamed for it. Malbolgia, it actually had the opposite effect of what Malbolgia wanted. So now he's back to being sort of the spawn warden and trying to figure out how he can still achieve his goals, right? Like make Spawn look bad so it can be promoted or placed as a lieutenant in the army, as opposed to one of the spawns. Now in the art here, we see that the violator has been pulled out of the water. It's some sort of a humanoid with like giant hair. We don't ever really get a good look at him. He's in shadow or he's blocked by pipes. But the violator ends up barfing up all this horrible sewage that it swallowed when the pipe burst and what have you. And the guy runs away, or girl, whoever it is, and Spawn's, or violator rather, is yelling at it, saying, "That's right, run away, earth scum. I can breathe air or water, whatever I want. You're lucky I'm not in the mood for any sort of casual dismemberment." So it runs off, and I'm sure it's somebody we're going to see later on, but planted by McFarlane here, because again, it doesn't look just like a regular old person. That hair is quite out of control, and it's got one of those shit-eating grins that Rocky always talks about. So I'm sure it's foreshadowing something about that human or humanoid-looking creature to come. So then we see the violator change to his human form, and he's talking about how something's wrong with Spawn, the fact that Spawn's symbiote, his costume, his uniform, whatever you want to call it, that's bonded to him has mutated so much faster than it should have. And he's worried because that costume with the chains and whatnot can really do a lot of damage to the violator, and it's going to make his mission, quote unquote, that much harder to accomplish, right? This idea of discrediting Spawn, making Spawn look bad, so that the violator will finally get his chance. So he's going to have to do it from a distance now. It's going to make it harder, but it's nothing that he feels like he can't handle. On the next page, we get a quick visit with Grandma Blake, and I'm not sure what the purpose of this is, other than to just show us Wanda and Grandma Blake. The only information we get is Wanda does mention to Grandma Blake that Terry just got a transfer. We saw that a couple of issues ago, and she just says that he transferred in a new department because the whole FBI agents being killed on the lawn didn't sit well with him, and he wanted to change. So I guess it's as good an excuse as any. And we hear that Wanda's organizing some sort of fundraiser for a children's society. So whether those things really matter and Grandma needs to know them, or it's for our benefit, not real sure. So it doesn't matter at this point. I will say that. So then on the next page, we see Spawn overlooking the city. For whatever reason, it doesn't really say why. Why isn't he chilling in his alley on his throne? We're not sure. But what we do see is there's a little 10-year-old boy who's walking along the street. For whatever reason, Spawn feels his attention pulled to this little guy. Again, 10 years old, and he gets grabbed and pulled into an alley by this drug dealer called Stinky. And the guy's talking to this kid like the kid's some sort of like drug mule or is somehow involved with it. And this guy Stinky's pretty abusive, and he's talking about how this kid named Tyrone's been messing with him and he won't put up with that. And the going rate for his stuff is $300, but he's going to charge this kid $600. And the kid like kind of tears in his eyes, says okay, and he gives him money. So I'm like, right away something doesn't feel right about this kid. Like, you think at first when he gets snatched off the street, these guys are going to be abusing him, but then this kid like pays him for the drugs. Like, what? How did this kid? How does a 10-year-old kid have $600 on him? Like, it doesn't feel right. It feels like something's going on here. And the deal's done. The kid takes off, and Spawn's watching with what looks to be suspicion, as much as we can see in his shadowed face there. And the guy, Stinky, says, I got an appointment, take off. What he's actually doing, he's taking the money he just got from selling these drugs. Apparently he's going to like some sort of strip club type place where these women are mud wrestling topless. And he's watching through the slit when Spawn attacks him in his little private room there, obviously kills him. We see blood spattered everywhere. And Malbolgia is watching. So Malbolgia is in his home in the 8th level of hell. And he's pretty happy with what he sees here. And he's kind of talking out loud to Al Simmons, saying, you can delude yourself all you want, Simmons, but you can't run away from who you are. Like, he's happy that Simmons cut loose on this guy. He says there's a reason that, we chose you out of all the millions of souls we could have. Death, evil, blackness, those seeds were planted in you at birth, and soon they're going to come to fruition, which obviously we should take to mean that, yeah, he's going to make a good lieutenant in the army of hell. So then we get the 3 talking heads that we're used to seeing quite a bit. The first one, CNN reporters talking about how the president kind of stuck his foot in his mouth while he was visiting Bosnia, the Bosnian war that's going on at this time in the real world, in the mid to late 90s, Bosnia and Serbia. So the little context there, it'll come back to be important toward the end of the story. The entertainment television reporter talks about this guy being mangled in a strip club, which I don't know. The E1, like, sometimes it's so clearly not anything entertainment television would ever cover, but I'll give McFarlane, some slack on that. He wanted to give 3 different points of view, but it's kind of weird. And then the guy, the right-wing guy on the bottom, KWRM, basically saying the same thing, mentioning both things, mentioning the president sticking his foot in his mouth and acting like an idiot, and then the fact that there's gruesome murders in New York, another drug pusher got killed. Why should anybody care? So on the next page, this is where it really starts to get interesting. We're in Jason Wynn's office, and who shows up but the Violator in his human form? And he starts talking about how they're going to have a great relationship. And starting today, Jason Wynn is going to work for him. And of course, Wynn, being the egotist he's like, I don't know how you got past my security, but you're dead. You made a fatal mistake. And Violator's like, nope, I've done my homework. We have common enemies. Your phone doesn't work. But I'm about to tell you all about the thorn in your side Spawn and Terry Fitzgerald and Police Chief Banks and Billy Kincaid and on and on and on. And so that obviously gets Wynn's attention. He says, I'm listening. So Violator goes on to say, all right, anybody that looks on your surveillance cameras right now is just going to see a regular office. It's a little magic, something I can do. You wouldn't really understand. And Wynn, you wonder how much he remembers from being anti-Spawn or Redeemer, right? Because he goes, try me, you'll be surprised. And the Violator's like, I'm hoping you're going to be on board, but here's the gig. And so he says, I need Spawn to be weak and susceptible, like vulnerable to the kill, but I have to do it from a distance. Remember, we were talking about before how Spawn's costume has evolved, and the Violator's actually worried about the costume and the costume's abilities and powers now. So what the Violator wants Jason Wynn to do is he's got some ideas, he's got some plans. He needs him to kind of lean on the friends of Terry Fitzgerald while buttering up Terry. So the Violator mentions how the costume's evolved and it's pissing him off, but he can offer Wynn power, right? Power where Wynn will no longer even have to answer to the president, because in his opinion, the Violator's opinion, the president and his administration are dumber than a sack of hammers, quote unquote. So he says, yeah, I see what you've done here. You've got this little scheme you have going on where you're going to do an air sweep of a supposedly friendly army, and that's going to get some defense contractors called to provide munitions, and you'll get a kickback, $12 million into your Swiss account. So just kind of, par for the course of what Wynn does on a daily basis. But then Violator mentions Terry Fitzgerald. He's like, yeah, I see Terry Fitzgerald, just transfer him to your office. So yeah, what I want you to do, befriend him, gain your confidence, just, make him think he's your best friend. But in the meantime, with sort of Jekyll Hyde thing, you need to find a way to push on his wife, push on his granny, and push hard, because what that will do is it'll drive Spawn crazy. And when the time's right, I'm going to let you in on something. I'm going to tell you who Spawn really is. And he goes, and that's going to give you a heart attack, which, again, once Jason Wynn finds out it's Al Simmons, and you wonder, like, what's the long game here? And why does Violator say it'll give you a heart attack? Like, he could be, unbeknownst to Jason Wynn, he could just be using Wynn. He plans on killing Wynn. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But he doesn't give Wynn that information right away, that Spawn is Al Simmons. But this is definitely not good for Spawn, right? His two of his biggest enemies are coming together, whether Wynn realizes he's being manipulated or not. So with that offer of power, with what the threat of what the Violator knows, and Wynn doesn't know that this dumpy little clown-looking guy actually can turn into a demon, so will he try to take the Violator out? Like, there's a lot of unknowns. But it does look like they're going to start to work together, which, again, is not good for Spawn. Meanwhile, at the hospital, where Twitch is recovering from the wounds he suffered in the Spawn Blood Feud miniseries from Alan Moore, we see Sam Burke feeding his weekly paycheck into the vending machine and getting a bunch of snacks when this very good-looking woman comes walking by, and Burke's about to make his move when he goes in to visit Twitch, and there's the very good-looking woman. So kind of some humor on the part of McFarlane here, that this Twitch, who's, very skinny and kind of nerdy kind of guy, has this, gorgeous wife, and Sam puts his foot in his mouth a little bit, but gets away with it. Doesn't go too far, luckily for him, before he realizes. So Twitch does ask about Chief Banks, and Sam lets us know that he was able to get his hands on some phone records. And I mentioned this last time when Banks panicked and called Wynn. Like, you're calling from the precinct, those calls can easily be traced, and that's exactly what Sam did. He's like, he called some confidential number at the CIA, haven't figured out who over there would give Banks the time of day, but judging by the hours that they're calling, they don't want that many people to know about it. So Sam is definitely on the case, right? He's still investigating Chief Banks. So meanwhile, back in Wynn's office, he gets a call. It turns out it's the president, and he says, hey, I'm calling to thank you personally for your assistance in getting us out of that Bosnian situation. I'm going to put my foot in my mouth and blah, blah, blah. And he says, I've been advised that you spearheaded the resolution, so thanks a lot. And Wynn's like really confused. He's like, wait, what are you talking about? But, he doesn't actually say that. He just says, oh, you're welcome, and hangs up. Like, what is he talking about? And then immediately his phone rings again, and it's the Violator. The Violator set it up, right? He's winning Wynn's trust. He's saying, I'm sure you just got a call from your pal. Think of that as a down payment about, what he was saying about giving him power and making him look good. So I just wanted you to be clear on the situation. Who's in charge here, Wynn? It's me. So toodaloo, buddy. Say hello to Terry for me. So Wynn, he doesn't seem really happy about this. He's not the kind of guy that wants to be under anybody's thumb. but he's got to recognize the value of it, right? So we'll see how that plays out here in a little bit. But meanwhile, back in the alley, Cagliostro is talking to Spawn, and he's kind of scolding him because Spawn's like, I don't really know what the Violator's thinking by attack. He just attacks me and disappears. Like, that doesn't make any sense. And Cagliostro's like, well, then you're not paying attention. Now, this doesn't exactly sit well with Al Simmons because, again, he's been a secret agent. He's been an assassin. He's been an operator. He feels like he is better at this sort of thing than the average guy. But Cagliostro is going to school him. He's like, well, he's trying to confuse you and distract you. He wants you operating on instinct because when your instinct takes over, you make mistakes. You're almost like two peas in a pod. And that's the last thing Al Simmons was like, I'm not anything like the Violator. What the hell are you talking about? And Cagliostro's like, well, your recent actions would say otherwise. Spawn's like, you mean Stinky? That guy deserved it. He was preying on children, and I just needed to send a message loud and clear. And Cagliostro's like, exactly. And you have all this training, and you have all this Spawn power, and Stinky didn't have a chance. But that's exactly what hell wants you to do, to give into your baser instincts, to act like that, to be this vengeful force. And we've talked in the past, right, this inconsistency of Al Simmons' behavior, right? Like, he didn't kill Wynn when he had a chance, and he didn't kill Tony Twist when he had a chance, or Gravano, or whatever name he's going by this week. He didn't kill either of them. He didn't kill the father that was abusing his sons. He didn't kill all of the KKK members, but yet he kills this drug dealer. So, like, what's going on? Like, we thought maybe he wasn't killing those people because he wanted to turn over a new leaf, and then first chance he gets, he comes back to New York and he kills a drug dealer. So it's not quite clear what exactly his motivations are, but apparently based on this, maybe because it was a kid, although again, I go back to the father abusing his children. I would argue that what the father was doing to his two sons is worse than what Stinky did to this kid who, again, had $600. What 10-year-old has $600? That should have sent off alarm bells in Al Simmons' brain, especially if he's, an operator, like we're saying. But anyway, Al Simmons is like, well, yeah, sometimes hell's right and people need to be killed. And Cagliostro's like, let me tell you something about this kid that you're talking about, right? This little boy, Tyrone. He runs those streets. He runs that neighborhood, which this is a little far-fetched for me. But again, it's McFarlane not being subtle at all. So 10 years old, and that kid is in charge of all that neighborhood, all the drug trafficking or whatever. And Cagliostro says he's been in and out of juvenile detention since he was 6, which, again, stretches belief. He's been selling guns since 7. He was indirectly involved in 2 murders, but his age allowed him to circumvent any severe punishment. At 10, I don't know, man. 12, 13, maybe. But, and this was, 30 years ago. So anyway, we're led to believe that Tyrone's a really bad guy, which, again, it's kind of weird, 10 years old. But that's Cagliostro's point. Like, you killed Stinky, this kid Tyrone is almost as bad. Right? Cagliostro goes on to say he wasn't strong-armed by Pinky. It was actually the opposite. Tyrone was going around looking for new suppliers. So it was the other way around. So you wade in, Cagliostro's telling Spawn, you wade in, your solution is kill what you don't understand. Let your ignorance rule. And Spawn's like, well, what do you want from me, man? And he's like, focus. Cagliostro's like, you got to focus. Use your power wisely, right? You were assassinated under orders. So stop denying that. Find out what's going on, Use your brain. Don't just lash out. Don't just rely on instincts, right? That's his point. So Spawn's like, well, I didn't ask for any of this. This wasn't how it was supposed to turn out. And Cagliostro's like, well, I know. But whether this is how things are supposed to turn out or not, it's still your problem. And when he says that, it's a great montage page here. We get Terry, we get Violator, we get Wanda, we get Jason Wynn, Tony Twist, Sam and Twitch, Grandma, and Spawn and Cagliostro there in the middle. And he's like, Cagliostro says, believe it or not, there's a lot of other people who are kind of in your web, right? And you can't ignore them. Some of them are friends and loved ones, and you don't want them to get hurt. So you got to start thinking before acting and not just acting out. So meanwhile, back at the CIA headquarters, Terry Fitzgerald's office. It's late at night. He thinks he's there alone. He's looking for some paper trails, trying to find out what exactly Jason Wynn's been up to. And he's running into some brick walls. He's running into some dead ends. He's like, this guy's really slick. Retracing his tracks is not going to be easy. There's all these security checks and international activities. Everything looks clean, like almost too clean. And then he hears a sound behind him, slams the door shut, and he turns around, and who is it but Jason Wynn? So he's a little flustered, right? Like he's just trying to investigate this guy. The guy shows up. But what Wynn's doing here is actually exactly what the violator asked him to do. He's buttering him up. He's trying to get close to Wynn. He's like, "Oh, you're still here working? You know, your reports are so thorough, and I really want to help you out, or thank you for helping us out on the recent field op. But there is another thing. There's somebody in my organization who's trying to make me look bad. He's trying to pin some non-sanctioned activities on me and creating paperwork that shows that I've been sanctioning some off-the-book stuff, and basically trying to make me look bad. And I need your help to find out who it is, because you're the new guy, and something about you tells me that I can trust you." And he's got like an evil look on his face, and Terry's actually got a smirk on his face. He's probably thinking, "Oh, this is exactly what I need," because he doesn't realize that the violator has told Wynn this stuff, and Wynn is trying to set him up. So a lot of political intrigue going on there between the two of them. So and that's how the issue ends. So it's not a bad issue. The thing that bothered me most about it was that inconsistency of why did Al Simmons kill this drug dealer when he's let so many other terrible people off the hook recently? Just didn't really make sense to me. It was kind of strange. Artwork, again, it's almost like the McFarlane Capullo style now, where there's a little bit of exaggeration, but not too much. It's somewhere in between what each of their individual art styles looks like at this time, which I find to be fascinating, but really, really good art. And obviously, probably the most eventful thing that happens in the issue is that meeting between Violator and Jason Wynn, which does not bode well for Spawn. And then to a lesser extent, the Cagliostro and Spawn conversation could turn out to be very important as well, because you can sense Al Simmons' frustration, right? Like, yes, maybe he's acting inconsistently. Maybe sometimes he's acting on instinct. Other times his humanity or intellect can win out and he doesn't kill. But I almost, like, if I'm Al Simmons, I'm probably frustrated as well. Like, Cagliostro clearly has all this knowledge about who Spawn is and how his powers work and the war between heaven and hell and all that kind of stuff. And at some point, if you're Al Simmons, don't you just go to Cagliostro and go, "Dude, draw me a picture, lay it all out. Like, tell me everything I need to know, because you're giving me all these vague clues and telling me don't do this or don't do that, or I made a mistake here or there." Like, well, maybe if I had more information about who I am and what a Spawn is and all this kind of stuff and what's expected of me, then maybe I could make more informed decisions, right? Like, give me some history on other hell spawns. Like, has Cagliostro even said, does Al Simmons even know at this point what Malbolgia wants? I think Malbolgia has actually told Spawn, right? It's hard to remember. Like, okay, we need you to be sufficiently evil so you can come and be a part of my army. Okay, how do I combat that? Cagliostro, you're really old. You've been around all these hellspawn. Why don't you tell me what to do? You're telling me what I shouldn't do after I do it, like hindsight 2020, right? Like, oh, you shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have done this. Why don't you tell me what I should be doing? Why don't you help me out? Help a brother out. Help me help you, right? Like, you're supposedly on the side of good, Cagliostro. So help me help you. How can I be good? What should I be doing? But he doesn't seem to be asking those questions. So I guess we'll have to wait and see how that all plays out, and then how the whole Jason Wynn trying to double cross Terry Fitzgerald, which he already had planned, right? Like, when Terry transferred in, Terry's thinking, I'm going to transfer in. I'm going to get close to this guy, be able to get some evidence. Wynn was thinking, oh, this guy just transferred in. It's going to allow me to keep a closer eye on him. And then he has the Violator show up, and the Violator's basically telling him to do what he was already planning on doing in a way anyway, but he's giving him some more specific details. Like, Violator's being a little bit better of a leader in that way, in leading Jason Wynn down down a path, like with a plan, than Cagliostro is doing for Spawn. So will that come back to hurt Al Simmons that he doesn't have enough info? Again, something we're just not sure. We'll have to wait and see. And then the last mystery, obviously, being who is that being that we're told was human, but had the crazy hair and the crazy grin and just looked like they were wearing jeans and were bare. Other than that, that person that pulled the violator out of the sewage early on, got to be somebody that's going to show up later and play a role. So we'll have to wait and see. That's going to do it, everybody. As always, I want to thank you for listening or watching us on YouTube. If you're checking us out on YouTube, if you are just listening to the audio, I would encourage you to go and subscribe to Rocky's channel, where we put out these Spawn dailies, as well as a bunch of other content that Rocky and I collaborate on, because then you get to see the art beyond just hearing us talk about it. So comic space boom exclamation point. Do a search for that on YouTube. You can subscribe to the channel, ring the notification bell so you know when new content comes out. Obviously, like this video. Conversely, if you check us out on the Comic Boom channel all the time and you want to be sure you don't miss any of the other audio-only content that comes out, just go to your favorite podcasting app on your smart device or your favorite podcasting platform. You can go to Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, whatever it is. Do a search for the Comic Source there, hit subscribe, and you'll get our episodes whenever they come out. So again, thanks for listening, everybody. I'll talk to you next time.